Welcome in, everybody. It is episode 24 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show, a hockey show for hockey fans, part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. And as the NHL playoffs roll along, we have completed the second round, and we are down to our final four teams in the NHL this year. Our division winners from each of the four divisions have been determined. The Montreal Canadiens out of the North, the Tampa Bay Lightning out of the Central, the New York Islanders out of the East, and the Vegas Golden Knights out of the West. So we are down to the final four. We're getting ready for third round matchups, and those four teams will be fighting it out for a chance to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. We have Vegas against Montreal and New York against Tampa Bay. Joined again, per usual, by the great Steel from Steel Flyers, Steel Playoff Hockey, continuing to impress and roll along here in this 2021 postseason. Thank you so much for joining again. How are you doing, and are you ready to go for another great show here about the NHL playoffs?
John, I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Okay, I know, look, we got to take a little solace in the fact that your Bruins lost, and we're sorry. Okay, they had a valiant effort mostly,
till the
except
end.
For the last two games.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, they had a valiant effort mostly. But yeah, man, condolences to you on that, my brother. We're sorry to see your team go. I had Boston picked to win that series, even though way back at the beginning of the year I picked the Islanders to win the East. I was not expecting them to win the East like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that out of the way there. So I'm sorry, So other than that, man, I'm doing great. This has been some amazing playoff hockey.
Yep.
There has not been a playoff hockey games like this in a long time. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're finally getting fans back in the stands.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now buildings are alive again.
Yep.
Instead of like last year where everybody played in the same, either one stadium or the other. You were either on one side of Canada or the other.
Yep.
Right, and all the gray sheets were all over the seats.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you could hear this guys skating around, and you could hear the sticks and all that other stuff, which I don't have a problem with. I love that. But the emotion, when a building breathes emotion, that's when you can tell it's playoff hockey.
Yep.
And that is exactly what has transpired over these last couple of weeks here with these first two rounds of the NHL playoffs. I mean, as stadiums were allowed to progressively get more and more people, things got more and more alive. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. That game last night was just wow.
Yeah, what a game. Vegas and Colorado finished up their series just last night. Perlo and I streamed the game, and it was quite a hockey game. The score ended up being more one-sided than the game actually was.
Right.
Because Vegas got a couple of empty netters at the end, which made it 6-3 and look more of just put a little distance between them and the final score. But that was a 4-3 game right up till the end. Yeah. And it was funny. Colorado scored, Vegas scored. Vegas scored, Colorado scored. Colorado scored, Vegas scored. Like, it was such a back and forth game for the first 2.5 periods.
It was awesome.
You could see Colorado really put it all out there at the end in the second period, and they didn't really have much left in the tank for the third. And
I'd have to agree with you on that.
I noticed that where they were pushing hard in the second period, and then by the time we got to the third, and Vegas scoring that goal with 17 seconds left in the second to retake the lead, that was just a back-breaking goal for Colorado.
I think so too. I think so too. Because I agree with you. It was back and forth all the way. And the goals were fast and heavy, right? Because each goalie was making save after save, and then a breakdown in the play, and then suddenly there's a goal.
Yeah.
Right? And then not very long after that, bang, there was another breakdown, and there's a goal on the other side.
Yeah, it was both teams were very opportunistic with their scoring in that game. I think Vegas even more so than Colorado, because Vegas didn't have that many shots on net. But when they got an opportunity, they made the most of it. And Perlo and I were talking about this last night, how there's so many similarities between Vegas and the New York Islanders. And I think the opportunistic scoring is one of those biggest similarities, where like they don't need a lot of shots on goal. They don't need a lot of chances. They take advantage of the few chances that you do give them. And we saw that with the Islanders in the Bruins series, where if Boston turned the puck over, it ended up in the back of the net. And it's like every little mistake was magnified for the Bruins because the Islanders were able to score on a lot of those chances, and it ended up costing the Bruins the series. And Vegas is that same way, where if you give them anything, they're going to make the most of it. And that's why they were able to win.
I also think Tampa Bay is like that too.
Yep,
because if you look at their series, the number of shots they have on goal is like sometimes they don't even get out of the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what? And they win 5-2.
Yeah, they'll have like 5 goals on 25 shots. And you're what? Yeah.
But they do the same thing.
Yeah.
They have that the way they play is kind of is similar to where they capitalize on your mistakes so quickly because they're such a good team that they have guys that have such high hockey IQs that they're always aware.
Yep.
That if they see a loose puck, suddenly now that becomes a chance the other way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so that's why I think we're seeing these teams are the ones that are making it to the Final Four.
Yeah.
Big
reason why.
We have to kind of say this too about Montreal.
Yep.
They are the same way. They have a much younger core of offensive skill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But they're starting to come along.
Yeah. Kotkaniemi is quite the playoff performer. He seems like he doesn't do much in the regular season, and then you get to the playoffs and he just turns his game on.
2 years in a row now where he has shined in the playoffs.
Yep.
Okay. And Suzuki is starting to step it up a little bit too.
Yeah. He had a really good series against Winnipeg.
Exactly.
Yep.
Not so much against Toronto.
Yeah, he was pretty quieter against Toronto. But.
And he only played in 3 of the 4 games, or he only played in a couple of the games there too in Toronto. He didn't play in all the games, right? Because coach came out with the first game and put all the vets in.
Yeah, Caulfield didn't play until the game 2 or 3.
Okay. Suzuki was in the whole time.
I think Suzuki was in. Yeah,
I know Suzuki was in, but Kotkaniemi was not.
No, Kotkaniemi and Caulfield did not play in the first game.
Right.
But then
the Toronto series.
Of the Toronto series. Then they came in, and they've been awesome since. Caulfield's had a really solid playoffs too. There's a lot of good young guys making big impact with the Montreal Canadiens right now.
And then. Not only that, you shove a little bit of Shea Weber in there as the back end, right, to help solidify their back end because they're a little young in the back end too. And then, not only that, you backstop it with Carey Price. Oh, dang. All right.
And they've got some veteran forwards. Eric Stahl and Corey Perry both have been impact players in these postseasons. So they've got that mix of the young guys like Suzuki and Kotkaniemi and Caulfield who are making big impact. But then they have the veteran guys who are showing up too, the guys that have been there before.
Yeah.
And Weber, Stahl, Perry, obviously, Carey Price in goal is the reason that the Montreal Canadiens are where they are. He has been absolutely phenomenal in this postseason. That's a dangerous team. A lot of people, keep writing off the Canadiens or underestimating the Canadiens. When you're getting goaltending like they are, and you're getting the play out of young guys and veteran players that they're a dangerous team, and I think it's gonna be a really good series between them and Vegas.
How's this for you, right? Okay, when it comes to playoff goaltenders, Carey Price is the top of the heap.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's got 8 wins 8 wins and 3 losses. All
Yep.
right. So, okay. He also has a .935 save percentage and a 1.97 goals against.
Wow.
Yeah. The next closest one is Fleury. He's 1.91. Everybody else is at 2 something.
Yep.
Right? So tell me that's not going to be an ultimate goalie matchup right there.
Oh, it's going to be insane for sure. That brings me. It's funny. The teams that have made the Final Four, they all have a lot in common, and I think that there's a common denominator here with all of these teams. There's actually 3 things that stand out to me, and big reasons why they've made it this far. Not first and foremost in the NHL playoffs is goaltending. They're all getting great goaltending. Carey Price in Montreal absolutely lighting it up. Marc-Andre Fleury having maybe the best postseason of his entire career. He's probably a long-time legendary goaltender. This season might be the best postseason of his entire career so far.
I'd have to agree.
In Vegas. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Andrei Vasilevskiy, you know what you're going to get night in and night out from Vasilevskiy. He, I think, is the best pure talented goaltender in the league right now. Just unreal down in Tampa. And then it's funny, Sorokin was kind of the guy against the Penguins for the Islanders, and then it flip-flopped for the Bruins series, and Varlamov is taken over against Boston, and they have 2 goaltenders that, one of them is always going to be on. If the other one struggles at all, they can just put the other one in and get grade A goaltending. Varlamov was absolutely outstanding against Boston. And all 4 of these teams that have made it so far have gotten great goaltending. All the way through. Oh, yeah, absolutely. The other thing is, like we were talking about, the opportunistic scoring. These teams don't have to shoot the puck 40 times to score 4 or 5 goals. Like that's what we were seeing with the Bruins, especially in the Islanders series, is they were getting 40-plus shots on goal, and they were still losing some of those games that they were getting 40-plus shots on goal. Whereas, these teams that have made it, they only shoot the puck 25 times. It doesn't matter. They still have 3 or 4 goals. And they're taking advantage of the other team's mistakes. When the other team turns the puck over, it ends up in the back of their net. When they get a shorthanded break, they're able to score a shorthanded goal. When they get an odd man rush, they're able to convert it and put it in the back of the net. And that kind of opportunistic scoring and counterattacking ability has all really helped these teams offensively and gotten them to this point.
Exactly. That's a great point, John, too, because that's exactly what we're talking about with opportunistic scoring.
Yep.
Where if you suddenly find yourself on an odd man rush.
Yep.
I saw so many odd man rushes over the course of the playoffs this year. And most of all the successful teams that converted on those odd man rushes are the teams that are now in the Final Four.
Yeah, Tampa and New York stood out to me on the odd man rush opportunities, whether it was a 2-on-1, a breakaway,
or
a
even
3-on-1
or 3-on-2. Yeah,
like the Islanders and the Lightning are both absolutely deadly in those situations, and they take advantage of them way more often than not.
Exactly, and I think that was part of what was the downfall of Carolina facing Tampa Bay, where Carolina was able to get a sustained pressure, but Tampa Bay was just that lightning quick strike, and then what?
Yep.
Suddenly now we're down 2 goals. What? What happened? We're playing so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And suddenly you're down 2 goals, and now you're playing from behind now and everything like that. I think a lot of other things contributed to Carolina not being able to cross the finish line this year. But man, you got to give them at least the hats off, the thumbs up, the golf clap.
They had a good season.
They had a great season.
Came up a little short in the playoffs.
Exactly. So look to them to be a little bit scary in the years to come here, because they're only going to get better.
Yep.
Which is scary.
and the third thing for me that really stands out about all 4 of these teams that have made it this far is the physicality and size that they bring. And I think some of those teams,
every single team.
Yep, every single one of them. And some of the teams that have been knocked out, particularly in the last round, were lacking in that. Carolina was lacking in physicality. Colorado was definitely lacking in size and physicality compared to Vegas. And
yeah.
The big, Montreal's defense is huge.
They're big
Edmondson,
guys.
Weber, Sherratt, Petrie, all over 6 feet tall, all over 200 pounds. They are big, and they pound you on the back end. Then up front, they've got Josh Anderson, who's a big boy, and he loves to throw his weight around. Corey Perry isn't the biggest guy, but a very physical player.
Weight around too. Yeah.
Brendan Gallagher, small guy, big chip on the shoulder, plays a feisty physical game. They have a lot of that in their lineup. Vegas, I mean, talk about size with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Gosh. And all you have to do is look at their captain, Stone, and go from there.
The way
because
he plays,
wears it on his sleeve.
He absolutely plays with that chip on his shoulder. And then you've got guys like Alex Tuck and William Carrier, Ryan Reeves, Keegan Colasar. Like, these guys bang bodies, and they are physical, in-your-face players. Tampa Bay, Pat Maroon, the whole third line with Gord, Coleman, and Barclay Goodrow. I mean that's one of the best third lines in the league, and one of the most physical third lines in the league.
That to me, I think right there, and you said it. I think that's the best third line in the league.
Yep.
Yeah, I would put that third line up against anybody. Yeah, and they would still come out on top. You know what I mean? But go ahead.
On the back end, they've got McDonough, they've got Chernak, they've got Shen when he plays. Like, they're big and physical on the back end. Even Hedman is a big guy, and he can use it when he needs to. He doesn't really go out of his way to, make huge hits or anything, but he can use it when he needs to. And the Islanders, I mean, is there a better fourth line in the league than what the New York Islanders have with Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas, and Cal Clutterbuck?
I mean, come on. That's one of the best names in hockey right there is Clutterbuck.
Yeah.
Right, come on. That and Shattenkirk.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. But Clutterbuck, he has a good, tough physical game.
Yep.
Those Islanders, man, they are stacked up front as far as physical teams.
Yeah.
Palmieri is really good. Letty's really good. You know what I'm saying? So they're not necessarily lacking in that department either. And you're exactly right.
All of these teams.
All of the teams that have made it have all been highly physical teams all the way through.
Yep.
The first 4 games of the Tampa Bay series against the Florida series, there was 342 hits.
Yep.
That's a season for a team. For a whole team, that's a season. That was in the first 4 games. Okay, so and then multiple other games have had the first 3 games of the Islanders-Boston series.
Yep.
Right? There was over 255 hits in those 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's
this is exactly why when you look at these teams and the way they're all similarly built and they all play with a similar style, that's why they're all here. And if you don't have a team that can at least dance with these guys, you're on the outside looking in. You're playing golf now.
Yep.
So that's why I think that exactly with what you pointed out, these teams are so very similar. They all have great goaltending. In fact, almost all of the teams that are left have their goaltender up for the Vezina, with the exception of
Islanders.
Carey Price and the Islanders. And Grubauer has now been eliminated, but he's up for the Vezina as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells you a lot right there. When the Vezina finalists are most of the guys that are, in the final 4 teams.
Two out of the 3 made it to the final 4.
I mean, okay.
Yep.
That's not really, that says a lot.
Yep.
Not only about the goaltending, but about the team around them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because you can have a great goalie season and your team is just going to stink.
Oh, yeah, we see that all the time. Look at a guy like John Gibson in Anaheim. Like, he's a very, very good goaltender.
Good goalie, yeah.
But if you don't have a team in front of you, you're not going to get wins, and your numbers aren't going to be as good. And that's just the way it is. Mackenzie Blackwood in New Jersey is the same way. He's a phenomenal young goaltender, but the team in front of him isn't there yet. And,
he's the same way in Philadelphia. Carey Hart is a huge, or Carter Hart is a huge talent in goal, but the team is just not in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we see that a lot, and that's why those are the teams are not in the playoffs, and the teams that are able to have that goaltending and have the teams in front of them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I'm very excited about these next round of games, and I have to say that I was also very excited about these rounds.
Yeah, these were awesome matchups for the most part.
Who would have thought that Montreal would sweep the Jets? Who would have thought?
So, that was the battle for the North, was between Montreal and Winnipeg, and the Canadiens ended up sweeping the series, and that was a shock to me. I mean, I knew that the Canadiens could win the series. I didn't think anybody was going to have it over in 4 or 5. I thought that would be at least a 6-game series. But from the games that I saw in that series, Winnipeg just looked sluggish and not mentally engaged and not prepared. And Montreal just really had it from the start and
ran over them.
They ran over them in game 1, and after that, like, Winnipeg didn't have much for pushback, and Connor Hellebuck did all that he could in goal, but eventually when it's just an onslaught of pressure like Winnipeg was facing, eventually the levee is going to break, and that's what happened, and Montreal was able to put the puck in the net, and Hellebuck couldn't keep everything out, and Winnipeg really didn't have much for pushback or offensive output, and it was just, I was really shocked, not with how good Montreal played, because they did play very well, but I was shocked with how bad the Jets looked in this series.
You know, that's a good point, because everybody and their brother picked Toronto to beat Montreal in that series.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Montreal came out on top, and they actually, I don't know, they looked like the better team, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily all the way through, but for the most part, especially towards the end, I mean, they won those last 2 games in a row there to win that series.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they win the next 4 against the Jets. They won 6 games in a row.
7.
Oh, 7. Oh,
they were down 3-1 and then they won.
Right.
They won 3 straight against Toronto, and then they won 4 straight against Winnipeg. Montreal is on a 7-game winning streak right now.
So that is like what? Montreal? They couldn't even do that during the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they did at the beginning.
Yeah, they got off to a hot start, and then it was a very 500 team from that point on.
But they fired their coach.
Yeah.
Right? They fired their coach.
Speaking of the coach, I think Dom Ducharme has earned himself another season behind the bench in Montreal.
You think maybe?
Given their playoff performance here.
I think he's not going to be listed as interim coach, or was he hired as the full-time?
I think he was an interim just for the rest of the season, but I think he's going to be getting the full-time gig here now after this playoff performance.
I would think, and you know what? I think that they actually have a good shot against Vegas.
I think everyone at this point, I think, has a chance. You don't get here if you're a team that doesn't have a chance.
Okay, but I mean, like, I wouldn't even put it past Montreal to be a favorite.
It's going to depend on the goaltending.
Well, that's what I mean. You got Carey Price and Fleury. I mean, just that right there alone is like, wow, all right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you got Vasilevsky for Tampa Bay going up against I guess it's the Barry Trotz. Yes, there'll be a Russian in goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So
whichever goalie plays better.
Whichever
goalie plays better. I assume they're going to start Varlamov given the way that he played against Boston, but if he slips up at all, Sorokin will go right in and go try him.
Yeah, I mean, so okay, so it's a Russian goalie versus Vasilevsky, and then a Russian goalie, and then it's Fleury against Price. So I don't know about you, but that sounds like some pretty exciting hockey as far as I'm concerned. But even looking at like the combinations where we were looking at Nedeljkovic playing really, really well in Carolina, okay. Yep. Making some rookie mistakes, and allowing a couple goals that he probably would have wanted back.
And and look where that got him.
Exactly.
Same thing with Grubauer in Colorado. Grubauer did not have a great series against Vegas. There were
but he's not a rookie though.
No. He's been around a while, but it's the same kind of thing where like you can have a really good goaltender, but when there's any sort of drop off in their play, that's all it takes, and you're outdueled and you're out of the playoffs.
Also, I think the other thing too was I think Vegas was able to stifle the offense of Colorado.
Very much so. Vegas is one of the best defensive teams I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, and so that's why I think that was the issue there with that as far as that's concerned, because that was I mean, you have two guys on your team that both scored over 30 goals this year, and they were basically not really happening here in the series against Vegas much.
And McKinnon didn't have a point for 3 straight games until last night, and then he had a couple last night, but it was obviously too little, too late in the end. But the 3 games before that, in games 3, 4, and 5, he didn't have a point.
Exactly. So I mean that is not gonna help you get over the hump when your offense is not able to show up. So that probably hurt them the most. And then with Carolina, it was basically the lack of physicality, the lack of availability of some of their top players for long stretches of period of time. A rookie goaltender who was getting his feet wet for the first time of his playoff experience, which all things considered, though, I mean, he played really well. Mm-hmm. All things considered.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can't. He had a .920 save percentage and a 2.17 goals against.
No shame in that.
No shame in that at all, right? So
Tampa was just the better team in that series.
Right.
Yeah. Lightning came out, won that one in 5, 4-1 win over the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes were just outmatched there. And like you said, Tampa physically was the more dominant team in that series. It was some of the games were low scoring. The first 2 games were low scoring. Actually, the first 3 really were. Then Game 4 was just that crazy one, where there was 10 total goals. 8 of them came in the second period.
Exactly.
That was that wild game number 4 where Tampa was able to win that one. This is the thing about Tampa that's so scary and makes them such a great team, is that they can win any style of hockey that you can play. They can win in any way, and there aren't many teams, even great teams throughout the history of the NHL, they have their style of game, and they have the way that they want to play. And if they win when they get the game to that style, Tampa, if you want to play run and gun hockey and make it 6-4, they'll beat you 6-4. If you want to make it 2-1 lockdown defense, they'll beat you 2-1. If you want to play physical, nasty, in your face, brawl it out hockey, they can do that. If you want to not hit anybody all game and just skate around, well, they'll just outskate you. Like they can do everything, and they can play any style of hockey that you want, and they can beat you in any style of hockey that you want, and that is what makes the Lightning so scary. That's
when you look at it like that, and you look at it like, okay, they're not trying to impose their will on you. Like that's exactly what you're talking about, where teams come in and they try to impose their will on you to their style of play, so that it suits their team. Like teams are built to play from in front instead of behind.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or teams are built to be, physical, or teams are built to be run and gun, or teams are built to be, stay back and be defensive and take advantage of opportunities like, New York Islanders and stuff like that. So I have a feeling that these games between the Islanders and Tampa Bay are going to be low-scoring affairs, not only just because of the goaltending, but because each team is kind of in that similar mindset where they can handle pretty much anything you want to throw at them.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Tampa Bay way more adept at it, I think, than the Islanders are, which is why I think this is going to be a really strange series compared to what it was last year. You know what I mean? So I think Tampa Bay is a lot more. I think this is a better Tampa Bay team this year than what it was last year.
And they won the cup last year, so that's scary to think about.
Oh, okay. So if I'm saying that, okay, woo. It's not looking good for you there, Islanders. Doesn't really matter. It's not looking good for you.
Mm-hmm.
But I really would like to see what the Islanders are going to do here in this. Now, how do they do this? Who gets to be the home team and who gets to be the away team? It's based off of the wins in the regular season. Oh, the seeding.
The seeding in the regular season. So based on point totals in the regular season. So Vegas is the 1 seed, Montreal is the 4, Tampa is the 2, and the Islanders are the 3.
Okay. All right. So there you go.
Yes. So Lightning will have home ice advantage over New York, and Vegas will have home ice advantage over Montreal.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to that point, who is going to be determined to be who's the home team and who's not. You know what I mean? So, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be amazing to watch these 4 teams come together and play. And what I think is going to be even more exciting is the fact that we're going to see Montreal come down to Vegas.
Yep.
And they're going to play in front of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a lot of people.
I mean,
for the first time in 2 years.
Yeah, because they haven't. Last year, when they shut everything down, they didn't allow any of the fans in the stands for the bubble.
Yep.
Right.
Well, over a little over a year then.
Right.
Because the season got shut down in March. And we're in June now, so a little over a year since Montreal's played in front of a full crowd like they're going to see in Vegas. Now, they did get fans back in Montreal for the Winnipeg series, but only 2,500 people.
Yeah, like it's only 10% or something like that.
It was 2,500 people allowed in for Montreal. So that when you go to Vegas and the building is practically full, that's going to be a different experience for the Canadians that they haven't had in a long, long time.
Wow. I mean, look, we've both played organized sports, right? And I have never, in all the years that I played any organized sport, played in front of an empty stadium.
No.
Have you?
Never empty, no.
I mean,
it's always like at least like everyone's parents are always there. Like there was always someone in the crowd. There's always people watching.
Yeah, but like when I played football, people are geared up to watch football in this area.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So the little the little stands and everything were always packed, and there was always a whole crowd of people there watching the game.
Yeah.
Okay, because you could always hear cheers and chants and everything when people scored and all that, the whole 9 yards. And it's like when you can go to places like and fill up like I guess high school stadiums seat maybe 1,000 people. When you can fill those up on a consistent basis, and that's what you play in front of on a regular basis all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get used to that.
Yep.
And you get used to hearing the band playing off in the distance. You get used to hearing the cheering squad, and then halftime you can hear the band playing out on the field, and just stuff crazy like that. You know what I mean? It's a whole different ballgame when there's no people in the stands.
Yeah.
And for Montreal to come out there and play like that in front of fans, it's gonna be enlightening, I think, for sure. I'm going to be excited to see how they adjust to that. I don't think it's going to be a big deal, though.
No, I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how they react to having that energy in the building again, because they're the only team that hasn't seen it, because all these U.S. teams have had fans back for a while now, and a lot of the U.S. buildings are either full or getting close to full now.
Right.
Where Montreal's the only team left, being from Canada, that hasn't had the fan experience the way that these other 3 teams have. So it's going to be interesting to see like what their reaction to it is, and like if does it help them, like even though they're going to be on the road and even though it's fans that aren't for them, just having that energy back in the building and that atmosphere back could kind of be like a jump, like a wake-up call and get their jump going for the Canadians, because they haven't had that at all over the last year.
Or it could be the exact opposite effect on Vegas.
Yeah.
Because Vegas is going to go up to Montreal and play at least 2 games.
Yep. And it's going to be a lot quieter than Vegas.
It's going to be a lot less excitement, a lot less quieter, or, a lot more quieter.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot less people in the stands. There's going to be a lot less hoopla surrounding the playoffs, which is, kind of a shame in my opinion. But,
yeah.
Canada has to do what Canada has to do, and you can't begrudge a country for trying to protect their citizens. So got to do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And that's the way it is. I'm just glad that they were able to come to an agreement.
Yeah. That's big, because that was one of the biggest questions heading in late into the playoffs here was what was going to happen with the Canadian team that made it. Because there was a lot of concern because the average people still can't just cross the border. You can't just go from the U.S. to Canada. But the Canadians were granted a special exemption, as were obviously the Golden Knights, to be able to cross back and forth so that they can have their normal home and away games in the playoffs. And I know that they're very, very limited. Like when Vegas goes to Canada, like they're in the hotel and like that's it. That's all they can do.
Yeah, they have very, very strict guidelines that each team has to follow to where when Vegas does go to Montreal, not only do they have to be subjected to, I believe it's daily testing, but also they have to remain in the designated area that they're supposed to stay in. You know what I'm saying? So I imagine that they'll have everything set up kind of like they did in the bubble. Yeah. Where they'll get a whole floor. Yep. That'll be for that team, and then they'll have concierge service set up and a little mini restaurant where the team can go in and get food and whatever, and like what they did in the bubble. Yeah. So and then the same thing back when the Montreal team comes to Vegas. Yeah. They have to stay in the hotel. There has to be daily testing. The same kind of situation has to be with the Montreal team in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see how that all works out, and how that goes, because the Canadians haven't traveled outside of Canada. Nope. None of the U.S. teams have traveled to Canada until now, so that brings a whole other dynamic into this, and it's going to be interesting to see. That series is going to be really interesting for so many different things, so many different reasons. That's like a really cool matchup that we've gotten here between Montreal and Vegas, and just the circumstances surrounding it. The goaltending matchup. The Canadian team leaving Canada for the first time. The U.S. team's going to Canada for the first time. Then you have the Max Pacioretty, Nick Suzuki dynamic, because when Vegas traded for Max Pacioretty, Nick Suzuki was the main piece that went back to Montreal in that trade. So you have that now. You kind of have Pacioretty versus Suzuki, the veteran versus the young guy.
I didn't even think of that.
Like, there's a lot of storylines here for this Vegas and Montreal series.
Exactly. And we've only touched on the surface. Because not only do we have this goaltending matchup. Yep. You know what I mean? Because with Fleury and Price, but with what you're saying now with the Pacioretty and Suzuki thing. You know what I mean? And I also see a lot of similarities here with both of these teams. Yep. You know what I mean? As far as being opportunistic, being big and physical teams, okay? Not taking a whole lot of shots on goal, but just being opportunistic and kind of playing more of the defensive set. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So I agree. As this series grows, the this is where I think is where the excitement's going to build for this one.
Yeah.
Because you're exactly right. There's multiple underlying storylines here for this Montreal and Vegas thing. And it's not just between the teams and the players. It's also kind of sort of geopolitical, I guess, because now it's the whole, well, they are allowing the Vegas Golden Knights to travel, and they're allowing Montreal to travel.
Yep.
Okay. But you got to follow these certain rules, but you can still do it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so when I was talking with from Peyton on the radio the other day on our show, the Sports Desk show, we were talking about how, that's going to potentially open things up for the other Canadian teams to at least be able to maybe travel back and forth to the United States to play their games.
Yeah.
Because Toronto Blue Jays are not playing at their home stadium.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. It's I like all the underlying stories, and then you got the rematch.
Yeah, that's gonna be cool. It seems like that would be good to come back from commercial break with some talk about the rematch here.
There you go.
The Eastern Conference Finals last year were Islanders versus Lightning, and then this year in the semifinals we once again get Islanders versus Lightning. But before we get into that series, we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts. I want to give a huge shout out to CCC Resorts and a big thank you for all of their support, not only of this show, but of everyone at Steel Flyers and of Steel Flyers All Sports Network as a whole. So a big, big thank you to them. And here's a word from our show sponsor, Canine Country Club Resorts.
Greetings. This is Steel Flyers from the Steel Flyers All Sports Network, and we have two very special guests. We are delighted to be joined by Tracy Musser and Nicole Howard from the Canine Country Club Resorts. Tracy and Nicole are both managers for CCC Resorts and work at the Windsor or at the club, one of two locations both in Manheim, Pennsylvania. Congratulations on your 30th year anniversary of being in business. Let me start off by saying this. Steel Flyer stands behind this company 100%. Taking care of Steel Flyer's furry friend for the last 2 years now, and they are a one-stop shop for everything your furry friend needs. In fact, let's find out what our friends at CCC Resorts offer. Nicole, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. What are some of the great boarding services that you guys offer, and what do we have to do in order to get our furry friends taken care of when we are unable to travel with them?
Well, we like to bring everybody in for a tour first. That way they can see the behind the scenes, they can see where they stay, they can see where they play, and then we explain all of the fun things that we can add on to their reservation, whether it be one of our packages, either a nature walk, a ball time, or even a cuddle time.
Oh, wow, that sounds great. Boy, it sure sounds like a resort to me. So how are you today, Tracy?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Tracy, tell me, is it true that you guys have both an indoor and an outdoor pool at the Windsor location?
It is true. We've got one of each, so we're able to offer year-round swimming. The indoor pool is a great option for dogs who are swimming for therapy or rehab. It's got that sloped entry so they can wade into the water. Our outdoor pool is a little bit larger, and it's 4 foot deep the whole way across. And both of them are saltwater pools, so it's really easy on the dog's skin and coat.
Wow, that's very awesome. So then during the summer months, you have a much deeper pool outside and then a sloped entry shallow pool indoors for the dogs. Tracy, tell the folks how we can get some pool time.
Well, the first thing everyone does is come for an intro swim. We use that time to make sure the dog is comfortable in the water. We make sure they know how to get out of the pool safely, and we go over all the pool rules and etiquette with the clients as well. After that, they're able to schedule private appointments where they have the pool to themselves, or they can invite friends and have a whole group swim going on.
So after a dip in the pool, then it would have to be off to the groomers, right? I mean, our furry friends cannot go out looking their best. Nicole, what are some of the great services your top-notch groomers provide?
Our groomers, they specialize in full service grooms. We can do the basics, whether it be just a bath and a brush out or a blowout. Or for the extra pampered pooches, we can do nail dremels, we can do deodorizing soaks, and also facials.
Wow, man, that sounds like a resort if you ask me. Tracy, I know one of the main programs here at CCC Resorts is the WAGS program. The Steel Flyers dog is enrolled in this program. So why don't you tell the folks what is involved in this and how they can get enrolled?
Yeah, the WAGS program is our primary daycare option at the Windsor. It's designed to be a structured program for people who are looking for a set routine for their dog. They all come on the same days each week, which allows them to have set friends, and we know exactly what's going on with each group. So we do a little bit more activities, and we build more into their daily routine there. But we've got other daycare options as well for people looking for a little less commitment. We do an hourly care where you can drop them off and just pay by the hour. We also do a day stay option, which is great for the dogs that prefer human friends instead of making friends with other dogs. And then we have a traditional daycare option as well if you're looking for the occasional outing for your dog.
Wow, there you have it. A full-service groomer, a daycare program, and an indoor and outdoor pool. What more could you ask for? Sure seems like CCC Resorts has everything covered. Remember, DOG, depend on God.
And we are back again. A huge thank you to Canine Country Club Resorts for all of their support and their sponsorship here at Steel Flyers All Sports Network. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. But we've been talking a lot about this Vegas-Montreal series, all the storylines, a lot going into it. I think it's going to be a really fun series, and can't wait to see how it turns out. But the other series here certainly has some storylines behind it as well. And that is the Tampa Bay Lightning against the New York Islanders, a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Final. Now, it's not technically the Eastern Conference Final this year because there are no conferences this year, but
Right.
It's still a semifinal matchup between these two teams again. And obviously, Tampa Bay was able to come away with the win last season. They went on to win the Cup over Dallas. And, it was a really fun, good, awesome series last year, and I think it might even be a little bit better this year with them playing each other again for the second year in a row. I think you might see a lot of good games between these two teams and a lot of physicality between these two as well.
Also agree 100% because both of these teams are founded on that physicality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Both of these teams have that defensive mindset.
Yep.
Both of these teams work on defense outward. Okay, it starts with the goaltending and then goes out.
Yep.
Everything runs through the goaltender. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way it is in Vegas. That's the way it is in Montreal, and that's the way it is in Tampa Bay too.
Mm-hmm.
Everything runs from the goaltender out. The Islanders are the only one that are slightly different, I think, where it doesn't necessarily all run from the goaltender out. They're more of a defensive-minded team.
Yeah, it's team defense with New York.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay, so that's the only one I think that's a little bit different, and that's why I think this is going to be a really excellent matchup, more so than what it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Tampa Bay is a better team this year than what they were last year.
I think the Islanders are better this year than what they were last year, though.
Oh, yeah, I agree
I
too.
think the addition of Paul Mary to that third line to go along with
Zajac,
Pajot and Zajac coming in. I mean, Wallstrom got hurt in that first-round series, and we haven't seen him since. But Zajac has filled in and has been very solid there on the third line. And it's funny, for New York, Matt Barzal did not really get going. And that first line did not get going really until about midway through the Bruins series. But it was largely this Brock Nelson line and the J.G. Pajot lines that had really driven the Islanders to this point in the playoffs. And then Barzal really got going later in the Bruins series, and that line came alive. But for the Islanders, it's that second and third line that have really driven this team offensively. The fourth line has been physical, and they don't give up goals against.
Exactly.
That fourth line in New York, I am so impressed with that line. That's my favorite fourth line in the league. Even when they're not scoring and not putting up points offensively, they don't give up goals against, and they always impact the game physically, and they get the forecheck going, and they add so much to that group. And now you have the top line going. You have Barzal starting to light it up. You've got Eberle who can put points on the board. This Islanders team, I think they're a better team this year than what they were last year.
When Barry Trotz moved Beauvillier down to that other line, that spelled the end for Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because that's exactly what happened. That allowed them to create a bit of a different situation for Boston that I don't think they were ready for.
Oh, the Nelson, Beauvillier, and Bailey line has been one of the best lines in the entire postseason so far.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So when he put that line together, I think that was because that's really what sparked the offense, I think, for the Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what basically I think put them over the top. And that to me showed the coaching chops, I guess, of Barry Trotz, because we already knew he was one of the best coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But to be able to see that particular weakness in Boston and then be able to make that adjustment, basically on the fly, and then be able to succeed at it throughout the rest of the series. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. I think the Islanders are a better team than what they were last year against Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is going to be a knockdown, drag-out series.
Yeah.
I'm looking for this one to be just as physical as the Florida Tampa Bay series.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for this to be just as, I don't want to say ugly, but I'll say intense.
Yeah.
That would be about the best way I could put it, because these teams do have familiarity with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's why I think that this is going to be one of the more contentious series. And it's not going to matter who the home team is. I don't think that's going to matter in this set.
No, both of these teams are more than capable of winning on the road. They've won plenty of road games already this season, or this postseason.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think home ice it hasn't been that much of an advantage in these playoffs. There's been a lot. At one point, I saw this. It was more towards the beginning of the second round, so I don't know what the final numbers are now. But at one point, home teams were under 500 in the playoffs at the beginning of the second round this year. After, I would say, a couple games of the second round, home teams were under 500. There was no home ice advantage. And I don't know how that shaped out, because Vegas just won all 3 of their home games in the Colorado
I was going to say
series.
Montreal won all of their home games after the fifth game of the first round. They won all their home games after that point. Colorado won all of their home games up until
Game 5.
Until Game 5.
And that ended up costing them the series. Boston split. Yeah, Boston actually only won one home game in the Islanders series.
Yeah.
And they lost Game 2 and they lost Game 5 at home.
And I think they split at the during the Pittsburgh series too, didn't they?
Yeah, Islanders won on the road in Game 1.
Yeah.
They won.
But I mean, I think Boston also won on the road as well in the Washington series.
Oh yeah, they beat Washington in Game 2 on the road.
Right.
And they beat Washington in Game 5 on the road as well.
Right.
Yeah, okay. No, road teams have done well in these playoffs.
Right. But the home team, these Final Four home teams have fared well in their home games.
Yeah, they've also won on the road quite a bit.
Well, look, we all know that in order to win championships, you need to win on the road, especially in the playoffs. Yeah. But not only do you need to win on the road, you need to win your home games too.
Yeah.
That's kind of important. You got to win those home games too.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. Like, is the home ice advantage going to overpower the ability to win on the road, or is the ability to win on the road going to overpower the home ice advantage? Because all 4 of these teams can do both. They're good home teams, but they can win road games without batting an eye. Like, it's not a big deal for them to win on the road.
The only one I think that's going to have any question marks might be Montreal, just because they haven't played on the road where hostile fans are.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't really see an issue with teams being on the road. and teams being at home. That's why I don't feel that home ice advantage is really going to matter.
No, I agree. I don't think it's going to be a big deal
in these series. Yeah, because all of these teams all can win on the road.
Yep.
And all of these teams all can win at home.
Yep.
So you're looking at some of the better road teams in the playoffs are coming to play in your building.
Yeah.
Well, you better have your A game or they're going to take it away from you.
Yeah. Tampa's been really good on the road. The Islanders have been really good on the road. Is that going to be one of those series where the road team wins like every wow. that wouldn't surprise me because that's what we saw in the Tampa series, both of them. Tampa was able to go and win on the road in Florida. They were able to win on the road in Carolina. New York's been able to win on the road in Pittsburgh, win on the road in Boston. Like that could be a series where the road teams are actually at maybe a little bit more of an advantage. And
yeah, because Vegas did the same thing. They were able to win in Minnesota. They were able to win in Colorado.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, Montreal was able to win in Toronto,
yep.
and they were able to win in Winnipeg.
Yep.
So, yeah, it would not shock me one little bit to see that home ice advantage not even be I think you'd even almost have to throw it out the window. I think it's going to affect the Vegas-Montreal series more than it's going to affect the Tampa Bay Islanders series, just because Tampa Bay and Islanders have been used to playing in front of fans.
Full crowds and hostile environment and loud
hostile environments.
Loud home environment and I think the travel aspect as well. Like Vegas to Montreal is quite a trip. You know, Tampa to New York, obviously it's not short, but it's right up the eastern seaboard. You know, you're just going up and down the East Coast. It's not a bad trip, and it's a very short flight. I mean, it's probably less than 2 hours if you have the wind at your back. I mean, New York to Tampa is not that long of a flight.
Well, no, it's not.
It's probably a couple hours.
No, it's not even that. It's not even that. Look, you can fly from Philadelphia to Atlanta in an hour and 45 minutes. Okay?
Yeah, so that's New York to Tampa is a little bit longer than that.
Okay, but it's only 2 hour flight.
Yeah, it's probably a 2 hour flight it's not a big deal. Vegas to Montreal is a hike. That's a travel right there.
Because you're going through all the time zones.
Yep. You're going from Pacific time to Eastern time.
Yeah, technically it's only a 7.5 hour flight. Technically, like that's all the time you're in the air is 7.5 hours. But because you cross all the time zones.
Yeah, and that's like 4 times the length of the flight for Tampa and New York.
Yeah.
So that the travel is going to definitely play a part in that series for sure.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. You know what I mean? That's exactly what's going on here. So that's why I think that's the only series I think that's going to be affected by the home team or the away team or the travel.
Yeah. Because
Tampa Bay to Long Island is an hour and 40-minute flight, if that. Right? So that's a simple flight you can do. There you go, bang, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They can get there the night before, have a morning skate, you know what I mean, and go through a normal routine.
No changing of time zones. Everything's East Coast.
They're all familiar with everything, you know what I mean? The whole 9 yards. Whereas now you're looking at Montreal coming all the way out to Vegas. So I think that's where you're going to see any if there's going to be any glitch in the matrix, I think it's going to be in that.
Yep.
Where with the Montreal and the Vegas series, where it's either Vegas going up to Montreal for the first time and or Montreal coming to Vegas for the first time. That's going to be a bit of a culture shock. So maybe that first game for Montreal is not going to probably go so well.
Yep.
You know, but I think game 2, they'll be right into it. You know what I mean? And right back at it. And then I think it's the same thing when you look at Vegas going up to Montreal. might be a bit of a culture shock. That first game, especially with no fans in the stands, is going to be a bit of a culture shock, and they might not have their A game that night. But then again, we're talking about the final 4 teams here, so everybody's got their A game no matter where you are and who you're playing. So I expect all of these series to be knocked down, drag out. The 2 at the end are going to be beat up teams, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But, that's the thing. When you get at this point in the playoffs, people are always asking me, who do you think's going to win? Who has a chance, who doesn't? This team's better than this team, or is this team better than that team? It's like, I don't really answer those questions, because when you get at this point in the playoffs, every team has a chance. All 4 of these teams are here for a reason. You do not get to the Final 4 if you don't have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. Like, you're a great team if you've gotten to this point, or at least you're playing great right now, and that's all that matters, is that you're playing great in the playoffs. And nobody gets to this point if they don't have a chance. So that's why, like, these games, these series, I think both are going to be absolutely phenomenal. I think they're going to be really fun to watch. They're going to be great hockey. You've got 4 really good teams going at it, and all 4 of these teams have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. They wouldn't be here if they didn't.
I mean, I don't even know what to say to that, because you can't. I mean, if these teams didn't win the games that they didn't, if these teams didn't win those games that they won, you're right, they wouldn't be here. And there's a reason why they won those games, because they were the better team at that particular point in time. Okay. And that's just all you can say about it. And everybody's like, oh, Montreal this and oh, Montreal that. Well, you know what? Montreal this. They have one of the best goaltenders ever in Carey Price. They've got some really young talent on the offensive side. They've got good, grizzled veterans on the defensive side. I mean, this team is scary. We saw them play very well in the bubble last year. They played against Philadelphia. I think they probably should have won that series, but Philadelphia just had a little bit too much offense for them. Which that is that's almost a double entendre right there. Philadelphia with too much offense. Okay. Anyway. Back to the real world now. But you're seeing that now, where Kotkaniemi has that experience again now. Suzuki has that experience now that they played last year. Now they're playing this year, and they're playing much better. And it does seem like Montreal is a much different team than what they were during the regular season as what they are in the playoffs. And that's just exactly owing to the fact that, with what you said, when you get to the playoffs, everybody starts off at 0, 0, and 0. What? Everybody has the same shot. You're going to play the same number of games. You're going to, this is how it's going to be. You get a shot. You're at the dance. Okay, so if you win, then you get to move on. If you don't, then you're playing golf. So
and look at the seeds of the teams that have made it. Montreal, 4 seed. New York, 4 seed. Tampa Bay, 3 seed. Vegas, 2 seed. No 1 seeds made it to the Final 4.
Exactly.
We have 2 4 seeds in the Final 4. Regular season success does not translate necessarily to postseason success. And the teams that have made it all, we talked earlier in the show about the 3 things that they all have in common: the opportunistic scoring, the great goaltending, and the size and physicality. The one-line teams, all out. The teams that rely heavily on one line for much of their offense, gone. Boston's out, Colorado's out, McKinnon line gone, Bergeron, Pastrnak, Marchand line gone. They're out. The teams that rely heavily on particular star players, Edmonton, McDavid, Draisaitl, gone. Pittsburgh, Crosby, Malkin, gone. Toronto, Matthews, Marner, gone.
Minnesota, the teams that they didn't really have stars in Minnesota. That was kind of a team collective.
No, that was a team, and look what they did. They pushed Vegas to 7 games.
Right.
The teams that have made it this far are the teams that are balanced.
Yes.
The teams that play a real team mentality, can get contributions from different lines up and down their lineup, and play a good all-around game without trying to be too offensive, without trying to be, too shut down defensive but not able to score. Goaltending obviously is the number one thing in the postseason every year. You got to have great goaltending to make it. But it's the teams. It's the hard-working, grind it out. We don't have a lot of superstars, but we have a really good team that, we get contributions from everybody. Those are the teams that have made it this far. I mean, obviously Tampa is loaded. Like, they have the star power too, but they also have the bottom six that brings that physicality, that grind it out, that team mentality. They have a bottom six that can chip in offensively. Tampa's kind of the exception with where they do have the Kucherov. They do have the Stamkos. They do have the Hedman. They do have the Point. They have that superstar group, but they also have that team mentality and that team build to the way that they play. New York, that's what they are. I mean, they are a team if there ever is one. Vegas, I think, is kind of the same way. They're a team, whereas rather than relying on that one guy or that one superstar line, they bring it from everywhere up and down the lineup. In Montreal, I mean, they don't have star offensive players in Montreal.
No.
I mean, their leading scorers would have been like third or fourth on most teams around the league. But
that's putting it mildly.
they have that hard work mentality. They have that grind it out mentality. And those are the teams that have been able to make it this far. And it's not the teams with the superstar talent for the most part. It's the teams that work hard, grind it out, and play a full team 60-minute game.
And I think you need to, in case there's any team out there that's listening or watching, you notice how exactly with what the GOAT said, teams that rely on one line are now out.
Yep.
We rattled them off. If you have one line on your team, that's great. But you need to have depth in scoring.
All four of these teams are deep.
I can't even express that enough. That if you can't look at these teams and see how deep they are at scoring, whether they have – look, it doesn't matter that Tampa Bay has Kucherov and Stamkos. That they just happen to have those guys on that team, right? But if you take those guys away, that team is still pretty stacked.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, they played all regular season without Kucherov, and they were still – they finished with 80 points or close to 80 points, and they finished third in the Central, but they were one of the top teams in the league again.
Like I said, if you take those two guys out, Tampa Bay is still pretty stacked.
Oh, yeah.
If you were to say take Crosby and Malkin away from Pittsburgh,
they're not even in the playoffs.
If you suddenly were to take Marchand and Bergeron away from Boston,
not even in the playoffs.
If you suddenly were to take, say, Oshie and Ovechkin away from Washington,
team's done.
Yeah, exactly. But if you take away the captain from the Islanders, and what did they do? They went out and got Zajac and Palmieri, and those guys have been lighting it up now in the playoffs. What?
Palmieri was very slow to get going with New York. He has turned it on in the playoffs to a level that even I was not expecting. He is lighting it up playing with J.G. Pageau.
Man, that's been an incredible combination there for the Islanders. And what a great little pickup for them at the trade deadline. Yep. You know, it didn't look like it was going to work out real well for them, but boy, is it paying dividends now.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to see this rematch again.
Oh, yeah. I'm really excited for this Tampa-New York series. I think this is going to end up being one of the best series of the entire playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not trying to take anything away from the Montreal.
No, that's going to be a fun one, too, and there's a lot of storylines there. But Tampa-New York, to me, is like I'm expecting that one to be on a different level.
I agree. And I think it's because there is that contention of familiarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
They played last year. It's going to be nasty.
It's going to be. When you look at the first couple of games of the Florida and the Tampa Bay series, right, I suspect that this is going to be right up there along that same line.
I think so too. And both teams have the lineups to do it.
With the number of hits and everything else, yeah, I'm looking forward to this series way more so, I think, than I'm looking forward to the Vegas and Montreal series. I was really kind of, rooting for Colorado there to make it. Unfortunately, that's not the case, but I do think that Montreal is going to give Vegas a good run. I think this is going to be a really good series. But if I had to like point and put a finger on it, you know what I mean? I would still say I would take Vegas in 6. Okay.
I think I'm going to agree on that. I think Vegas in 6. I think Vegas has the goaltending that can match Carey Price with Marc-Andre Fleury, and I think that's where that's been Montreal's big advantage, has been Price in net to this point. But I think
they can crack him.
I think Vegas can match the goaltending aspect. I think it's going to be a low-scoring series. You're not going to see a lot of goals in this series. But I do think that Vegas is the better all-around team.
Yeah.
And I think that Vegas is going to be able to get it done. I'm going to say 6 games. I think Montreal is absolutely going to keep it close. I think you're going to see a lot of 1-goal games between these two.
You think?
But at the end of the day, I think I'm going to take the Golden Knights in that one and take Vegas in 6.
Yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from Montreal at all, because I really think that they actually have a really good chance here to beat Vegas. They really do.
Absolutely.
Okay? They have the goaltending to do it. They potentially have the offense to do it. It's, do they have the physicality to match up against Vegas, and will they be able to withstand that? Okay, because Vegas is going to be a tough team to kind of get through.
Yep.
Especially with their speed and their skill players in Montreal. So, but if they can do that and be successful, then I think that they have a really good shot of beating Vegas. But that's just it. Are you going to be able to get through that wall of Vegas?
Yeah.
Before you even get to Fleury, you got to get through the wall of Vegas first.
And Vegas, has a lot of experience too, a lot more so than Montreal, deep in the playoffs. And
yes,
they went to the Cup. They have a lot of guys left on this team that were part of the Cup Finals team in 2018. They went to the conference finals in last year, and they ended up losing to Dallas, but they were a Western Conference Finals team last year. They have experience going deep into the playoffs like this, and I think that is also going to be a slight advantage for the Golden Knights. Whereas, yes, Montreal has some veteran players, and they've got guys that have gone deep into the playoffs. They've got Stanley Cup guys, and Eric Stahl's won a cup with Carolina, but they haven't done it together as this group. Montreal hasn't been this far with this group together, and I think that's an experience advantage for the Golden Knights.
See, that's why, and like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from Montreal. They do have some playoff experience, very limited, because they were ousted out to the first round from last year. You know what I mean? But I still think Montreal has a really good chance.
Yep.
And if they can get behind the defense of Vegas with their speed and their skill, then it's going to be a long series for Vegas. Okay, because that Montreal team, once they smell the blood, you know what I mean? It's pretty much on like Donkey Kong, I guess you could say.
Absolutely.
But very excited about both of these series, man. I can't wait to start seeing these teams strapping it up here, man. We get the first game here on Saturday at 3:00.
Sunday, yep.
Oh, Sunday, 3:00.
Sunday afternoon at 3 is Tampa, New York.
All
Tampa,
right.
New York. We got to do a prediction for that one.
All right.
I'm gonna take the. Oh man, this is tough. I I don't see the Lightning losing at this point. I just think they're too good all around. I think it goes 7, though. I'm going to take the Lightning in 7.
Going to agree with you on that one. I'm not betting against the Lightning anymore.
No.
Sorry, just not doing it. I've done it twice now. In this playoff round, I'm not doing it again.
Yep.
I'm definitely picking Tampa Bay, and I'm going to go 6.
Okay, Tampa in 6.
Yeah, Tampa.
I don't know. I think the Islanders, are scrappy enough to really they have a shot. They have a chance. They're a scrappy enough team to be able to pull it off. But I just think Tampa's star power mixed with what they have is from their depth is just going to be too much. And then I think Vasilevsky's going to outduel Varlamov or Sorokin. Okay. I think Vasi is just a notch ahead of those two. And I think that Tampa's going to come away with this win and go to the finals.
There you go. So I think we're both picking Tampa Bay and Vegas to make it to the final.
Yes.
But that's going to be fun.
That would be a heck of a finals.
Oh my God. No, you know what would be a heck of a finals? New York and Montreal.
Montreal. Yeah, that would be crazy.
So what are the odds of New York and Montreal? Like you'd almost have to put a little something on that just to cover your bases.
Yeah. Imagine what the odds were for the Stanley Cup final to be the Montreal Canadiens against the New York Islanders back at the beginning of the playoffs.
Wow.
That would have been a payout right there.
Wow. Could you imagine putting money on Montreal at the beginning of the season? To make it to this point.
To make it just to the Final Four.
Yeah.
That would have been well worth throwing $10 on that.
I mean, because the first 12 games of the season, Montreal came out and did not lose a game in regulation.
They were flying at the start.
They looked amazing, right? We were like, wow, Montreal, hey, and then the tires kind of fell off and the coach got fired.
Yep.
What? The coach gets fired? And now here they are in the Final Four with a new coach. And, this was also the team that we felt, because of all the moves they made during the offseason, that this would be one of those teams that, we didn't think Montreal was going to even be having a sniff at anything. Because, the coach hadn't been there that long. They got a whole bunch of new players, a whole, new things moved around, blah, 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 the whole 9 yards. Players left, things like that. And we looked at Montreal and we're like, yeah, man, they had a lot of movement this offseason. They made a lot of player adjustments and everything like that. And, well, here they are in the Final Four, folks. So I guess everything panned out pretty good, huh?
Absolutely. So.
Man, who knew? Who would have thunk? Right.
It's been a crazy postseason, but it's been really, really fun with a lot of upsets, some really good series, very exciting hockey to watch. It's been an awesome playoff so far. Certainly should continue the rest of the way, whatever the matchups are. We know the Final Four. I love the matchups. I think they're going to be a lot of fun. And whatever the finals ends up being, I think it's going to be a really, really fun Stanley Cup Finals as well.
I agree. Even if it's New York and Vegas.
Yep.
Or Tampa Bay and Montreal.
Yep.
Right. It doesn't matter who it's going to end up being. I think they're going to be an amazing set of games. I think these games.
Yeah.
These next set of games here are going to be an amazing set of games.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? This is when it gets good. This is when it gets juicy.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
This is where it really meets the road. And this is what you live for, man. If you're a hockey fan, it's all about that. It's all about that. So
100%.
Can't wait.
All right, so a quick recap of round number 2, which came to an end last night. The Montreal Canadiens won the North Division, beating Winnipeg 4-0 in a sweep. 4 straight games there for the Habs, and they've now won 7 in a row. Long winning streak in the playoffs for Montreal, and they are rolling right now. Tampa Bay Lightning were the next team to finish off their series. They won the Central Division, defeating the Carolina Hurricanes in 5 games, 4-1 there. Lightning look really, really strong and are pushing hard for a repeat here as they won the Cup last year. They certainly look like the defending champs this season. They've been playing very, very well. The Islanders beat the Boston Bruins in 6 games to win the East. Boston kind of fell apart at the end there, and the Islanders were able to play some very opportunistic hockey offensively. They're getting great goaltending right now from Semyon Varlamov, and obviously the Islanders are a very good defensive team, as they always have been under Barry Trotz. So Isles look strong, and they are definitely going to put up a fight against Tampa Bay. Think that's going to be a really fun one. And then Vegas just finished their series last night. They beat the Colorado Avalanche in 6 games to win the West. Yeah. They moved on now to face Montreal in the finals, the semifinals. The semifinal preview here: Vegas against Montreal is the 1 versus 4 matchup. Tampa Bay versus New York is the 2 versus 3 matchup. And those series will begin on Sunday and Monday. Tampa Bay starts against New York Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And then Vegas and Montreal kick it off on Monday night in Vegas for the start of that series. So that is where we are at right now. And we got some great hockey coming up here in the Final Four, and we'll see who's able to move on to the Cup Finals.
Yeah, I can't wait. This is what it's all about.
Oh,
This is what you're here for. This is why we do this. This is why we're all part of this. This is why, we're this is what we're trying to. This is what we live for. This is what we get up in the mornings to see who's going to be the next team that's going to play. And I'm also very excited to see how some of these trophies are going to shake out.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've been doing the announcements of the trophy finalists.
Yep.
Over the last couple of weeks here now, where we got the Hart Trophy was announced yesterday, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the Vezina Trophy came out, and the Norris Trophy has come out. So
I think they're pretty much all out now, I think. So
I don't think I saw the Jack Adams one.
Yeah, I think yet. Jack Adams is the last one.
Right. That's the only one that I don't think has come out yet.
All the other major awards, I think,
yeah.
The finalists have been announced.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So next week we might do some award talk.
I have a feeling that would probably be a good addition to the show.
I think so too.
Along with some amazing hockey, we're obviously going to get a chance to witness here in the next couple of days here.
Games in, before next week's show.
For sure,
we'll be underway with these series.
Looking forward to that, man. Looking forward to that for sure.
Absolutely, but that's going to wrap it up here for episode number 24. We've got the second round complete, third round beginning this coming weekend, and we have some awesome matchups that I think are going to lead to some really good hockey and then a really fun Stanley Cup Finals matchup after that. So appreciate everybody watching. Steele, once again, it was great to have you on and do this show. As always, it was another fun one, and we've got some awesome hockey coming up here.
I agree. I really appreciate you having me on, man. This has been an amazing show. I'm looking forward to a lot more of these. This has been an amazing set of what we do here. I love being able to inform everybody of all the great hockey that's out there. I love this format. John, you're an amazing host. Thank you very much for all the work that you do and everything that you do as far as keeping this rolling. All the games that you call, man, if you're not following Off the Wall Hockey, then you're missing out. Check us out on the web at www.steelflyers.com/links/offthewallhockey, where you can get John and all his stuff, all his latest and greatest. You can also check us out on the web at www.steelflyers.com. Thank you very much to our sponsors, www.cccresorts.com. Check them out on the web or check them out on Facebook. Also, they have 2 locations that are now open, and the outdoor pool is now open too, so make sure to give them a call and get your pets scheduled for swim time. Thank you very much, John, for having me, man.
Hey, thank you as always, and thank you guys to everybody watching. Obviously, without the audience, things like this cannot happen. So a huge thank you to all of you that watched and listened This was episode 24 of the Off the Wall Hockey Show, a hockey show for hockey fans, part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. We will be back next week with episode 25, and we will have obviously some awards talk coming up with all of the finalists announced, as well as third round action underway. We'll be probably about 3-4 games into each series, probably around 3 games into each series by the time we record next week. So
yep.
It's going to be a fun show next week, and hopefully you guys will join for that for episode 25, which I can't believe it's been 25 already coming up.
I know, my gosh, man. Just like that. Just like that, boy, huh?
Time flies for sure, but it's going to be a fun end to the NHL playoffs here. It's been an awesome postseason so far. So once again, thank you to everybody. Thank you to Steel. Thank you to our sponsor, and we'll be back next week. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great weekend.